Costin, what is your take on BadPilot? What are we looking at here?
Um, I thought it was interesting that they're talking in this blog. They're talking about a subgroup within Seashell Blizzard,
Yeah.
which essentially is, and I tell you what kills me is that when people say Seashell Blizzard overlaps with the Trinity tracked by other security vendors. So not saying like Seashell Blizzard is our name for Sandware, it's our name for APT. It overlaps with activity other vendors may be tracking as part of a larger or smaller group that may or may not be associated with APT 44. And I was thinking like, okay, so Seashell Blizzard, that's essentially what people used to call Sandworm or Hades, APT 44, Black Energy 2, Black Energy Light.
Why can't Microsoft mention that here?
They do, but they say it. What we think is Seashell Blizzard, it just overlaps with those. So they do say, actually they do say.
I don't think there's something wrong with that in this case. I'll say that, look, it's the same discussion we were having about like, well, why don't we just standardize the namings, right? Like we've discussed this before from that perspective. In this case, though, I think you see the level of nuance that I think is appropriate when you have a certain level of visibility, but no consensus, which is to say, like, credit to Microsoft and Mandiant. They have been having much more nuanced discussions about some of these complex Russian groups, where the discussion, what it ends up revealing is that from their point of visibility, Mandiant and Microsoft have started to look at some of these big staple Russian groups and being able to say, well, yes, this is APT whatever, but they seem to have 4 subgroups. One of them is doing access operations. The other one does the lateral movement. There's one that's developing the exploits. There's one that's sort of managing the long-term intrusions, stuff like that. And at that point, you can see why this is so complicated, because maybe we walk in and we say, oh yeah, we have something on APT 44, here's this campaign. For us, our point of visibility is one where it just, we're only looking at what Microsoft might consider one of the subgroups. But for us, it's all that we had seen because it's the only, it's all part of the operation that we'd seen. We say, oh, we think this is APT 44. Somebody comes out from Mandiant or Microsoft says, yeah, sort of, it's APT 44, but it's only this subgroup. And you go, oh shit, I didn't even think they had subgroups. And you're all just kind of like, it's such a fucking mess. But part of that mess is that, like, elephant in the dark problem, right? Like, we're all touching one portion of it and you go, oh, we think it's this animal, we think it's that animal. The other part of it is simply like not having a clear understanding of what is actually entailed by these organizations, not out of a lack of attention, but you're talking about covert ops being run by these shadowy orgs that have these shifting internal organizations. And yeah, like, how the fuck are, like, for people who come in and go, well, just call them the SVR, you go, okay. I don't know that it's the SVR. If I do know that it is the SVR, well, I don't know if it's a contractor that the SVR pays. I don't know if it's an organization within the SVR. I don't know if it's the SVR commander's son's friend who is running this op somewhere. And also, those are not static relationships. And that's my bigger issue with a lot of that, like, oh, just call it what it is. It's like, well, we don't know what it is. In this case, the overlapping thing, I think it's the kind of language we've gotten used to using in order to dismantle the weaponization of, oh, bro, like, you're missing this thing, or, oh, you said it's sandworm, but it's not quite sandworm. Sure. But there is something substantive behind it, which is stuff like this. Now, like, I'll talk to folks over at Mandiant, and like, when they talk about Turla, Dan Black has become such a great, like, resource for what some of these Russian groups are doing. He's been doing these great talks over the past year, and to his credit, going to, I go a lot of the conference circuit, and then I'll see Dan Black come on stage with someone else at Mandiant, and I go, oh, this must be the same talk that I watched like 2 months ago. And you go, no, this motherfucker has a brand new talk. It's like, it's all new stuff about Russian whatever. And like, if you pay attention to what they're saying, they usually come up and say, hey, we're going to talk about this campaign that Turla did. But actually what we see is that there's three different subgroups that are operating in this, and this one does this one does that. Like there's a level of granularity in that tracking that I think is meaningful, and I like to give these folks credit because having the visibility that Microsoft has, or the tracking, like expert tracking that Mandiant is doing, and sometimes you get this with Google as well, you get a sense of, well, these dudes are getting to like parse the structure of these operations at a level that the rest of us aren't.